The night was supposed to be ordinary. Daniel Hayes, a former Army Ranger and now a single dad, had checked into the Grand Royale Hotel in the heart of the city. He wasn't there for luxury, just for work. He had picked up a short-term security job to cover his daughter Emily's medical expenses. The hotel's marble floors gleamed under golden chandeliers, but Daniel barely noticed. His life had been stripped of extravagance long ago. He walked with a soldier's alertness, every detail registering in his mind, though he pretended to be just another tired guest. That's when he saw it. In the corner of the grand lobby, near the elevators, a tall man in a dark suit leaned toward a woman, elegant, poised, clearly someone important. At first, it looked like business. But Daniel noticed the tension in her posture, the way her hands trembled even as she tried to maintain composure. The man's grip on her arm tightened, almost painfully. When she tried to pull back, his lips curled into a threatening sneer. Daniel's instinct screamed louder than his reason. This wasn't an ordinary argument. Then, just for a fraction of a second, her eyes met his. A silent plea. "Don't talk," Daniel whispered as he approached, his voice steady, low, commanding. It wasn't directed at the man, it was for her. He knew from experience that one wrong word, one reaction, could escalate things beyond control. He stepped in, positioning himself like a shield. The man turned, fury flashing in his eyes. "Mind your business." But Daniel didn't move. Years of combat, of loss, of learning to read danger, had taught him how to stand his ground without a weapon. "Let her go," he said. His voice was calm, but beneath it was steel. The woman, who Daniel would later learn was Alexandra Pierce, CEO of one of the largest tech firms in the country, slowly slipped her arm free in the distraction Daniel created. She adjusted her blazer, masking her fear with the cool elegance of a boardroom executive. But her eyes lingered on Daniel's, wide with gratitude. Security rushed over, alerted by the confrontation, but the man vanished into the crowd before they could act. The hotel buzzed with murmurs, curious guests watching, but Daniel didn't care. He only turned back to Alexandra. "You're safe now," he said softly. That night, Daniel expected the incident to end there. He had stepped in because he couldn't stand by, not after all he had seen overseas, not after everything he had promised to his late wife, that he would always protect those who couldn't protect themselves. But life had other plans. The next morning, Alexandra sought him out. She had found out who he was through the hotel staff. Instead of the distant, untouchable CEO the media painted her to be, she appeared in front of him humble, vulnerable, even shaken. She thanked him, but her voice cracked as she admitted the man wasn't a stranger. He was someone from her company, a trusted partner who had betrayed her in ways she hadn't yet shared. Daniel didn't pry. He simply listened. And for Alexandra, who carried the weight of her empire alone, that silence was more comforting than words. Over the following days, circumstances pulled them together again and again. Alexandra insisted on hiring Daniel temporarily as her personal security detail, claiming she felt safer with him around. At first, Daniel hesitated. His focus was always his daughter, Emily, a bright 8-year-old who struggled with asthma and needed every ounce of his attention. But when Alexandra met Emily, something shifted. She didn't treat her like a burden, the way some people did. Instead, she knelt, smiled, and spoke to her as though Emily were the most important person in the room. Trust began to bloom where there had only been necessity. Still, shadows lingered. The man from the hotel wasn't gone. He was circling closer, desperate to silence Alexandra before she exposed him. He had been funneling money, manipulating contracts, setting her company on the brink of scandal. What Alexandra had caught that night at the hotel was evidence, enough to destroy him, but also enough to put her in danger. Daniel knew the risks. He had lived in the crossfire of betrayal and violence. But when the threats against Alexandra escalated, strange cars tailing her, anonymous messages warning her to stay quiet, he made a choice. He wouldn't just protect her because it was a job. He would protect her because it was right, because somewhere along the way, Alexandra and Emily had both found a place in his heart. The final confrontation came one evening when Alexandra hosted a high-profile meeting at the hotel's rooftop lounge. The city lights shimmered below like 1,000 stars, but Daniel's focus was razor-sharp. He spotted the man slipping into the shadows, his hand tucked suspiciously beneath his jacket. Daniel moved instantly, positioning himself between Alexandra and the threat. Stay behind me, he told her firmly. The man lunged forward, rage in his eyes, but Daniel reacted with the precision of a soldier. In seconds, the attacker was disarmed, pinned, and surrounded by hotel security. Alexandra's evidence combined with the arrest ensured he would never harm her, or anyone, again. Afterward, Alexandra stood trembling, not from fear this time but from the weight lifted off her shoulders. She looked at Daniel, her voice breaking. You didn't just save me. You reminded me that I don't have to carry everything alone. Daniel didn't know how to respond. He wasn't used to being anyone's hero anymore. But when Emily ran into his arms that night, giggling as Alexandra watched with a smile that softened her CEO armor, he realized something. Saving Alexandra wasn't just about protecting her life, it was about opening a door he had closed long ago, the door to hope, to connection, to a future he thought he no longer deserved. Weeks later, as the chaos settled, Alexandra offered Daniel something unexpected. Not just a job, but a chance at partnership, both in business and, quietly, in life. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was real. Two broken people who had found strength in each other. And every time Alexandra replayed that night in her mind, the moment Daniel whispered, "Don't talk," she understood it wasn't just about silence. It was about trust, courage, and the unspoken promise that sometimes, the strongest words are the ones left unsaid. By the end, the story isn't about a single act of bravery, it's about healing, trust, and how unexpected moments can change the course of lives forever.